to another live session of Out of Mind Journeys of Self-Discovery. I am Dr. Ritisha Nagar, and I do these sessions every Wednesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. conversing with people who have transgressed social and boundaries and are here to share their lives with you. So I hope you found the last few sessions interesting. Because last week we did a session on bipolar disorder, we did a session on LGBT experiences, and on Wednesday we did a session on adulting and coming of age experiences. Today again we're going to be picking up a very interesting and very pertinent topic for discussion, which is self-harm, healing your scars inside and out. So if you have ever engaged in self-harm, or if you know anyone who has or is engaging in self-harm, or if you just want to understand more about what self-harm is, or maybe you want your parents to tune in and understand what self-harm tendencies are and how we can manage them, how we can treat them, how we can work through them, then this session is for you. So before I begin the session, I would want to give a disclaimer that many of you may find some of the conversation to be triggering, or you may find these conversations to be overwhelming. So if you do, I would advise some discretion over there. Now about the session today. So I've kind of had the discussion with my friends many times that when I was in school or when I was in college, there were not many incidents of self-harm, at least not that I knew of. But over the years as a teacher, I've seen many students or I've heard about many students, I've come to know about many students who might be harming themselves through cutting, through burning, or other such acts. And I've kind of wondered, especially with my friends, that is there something about this generation, what kind of change has gone through that self-harm has become so, I wouldn't call the word popular because that's not the right word, but has become so common? Or was it that perhaps even people in our generation were engaging in self-harm, but back then 15, 20 years ago, or 10, 15 years ago at least, there was so much of taboo to talk about these experiences that we never really came to know about these kind of behaviors. So when I was talking to the speaker that I have invited today, the guest that I have invited today, and she just happened to tell me that, that this generation does experience a lot of intense emotion, and they've probably just gone from hurting themselves and kind of joking and making memes about self-harm. So the kind of the middle ground or the gray area of conversing in a non-judgmental safe space about self-harm has not been taken up, and that's why I thought that this session was very important. So I'm gonna be inviting my speaker for today is Asavri Mishra. So Asavri is 22-year-old writer for LGBTIQ centric themes. Hi, hello. I think we're connected now. Sabri, can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now? All good?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I was just introducing Asavri. I was just introducing you. So you're 22-year-old. You write on LGBTQI centric themes. You're a dancer, and you are a foster mom to everything fluffy. And you're also oh, so cute. So she's gonna bring in some of those fluffy things on our show. And so Asavri is also a suicide survivor, and you are in recovery. And I remember I had invited Asavri, maybe some of the students who've tuned in may remember Asavri, that we've called her to our college once, and I think she spoke so well, and many students found you to quite the role model material, and that's why I thought that I must connect with you. No, I'm I'm not at all flattering you. So thank you so much for being here and joining in this.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So Asavri, my first question is that, self-harm is a very general word for me. So when I see self-harm, I can think about so many different self-destructive behaviors that we engage in. Most of us engaging, it could be procrastination, it could be laziness, it could be impulsivity, it could be aggression towards other people, etc. But these kind of behaviors or these kind of tendencies don't merit the same kind of attention as maybe cutting yourself or burning yourself, which is what. So what exactly is self-harm, and what kind of behaviors constitute under the general heading of, let's say, self-harm behavior?
So, I think one of the most common things that we should address is that we associate the term self-harm with a lot of things, like you just said. But how self-harm can be perceived in its conventional sense is by renaming it self-injury. It's when you don't, there are practices like procrastination, like being aggressive, that sometimes you think you associate with self-harm because you think that that's you harming yourself. But self-harm in this sense means hurting yourself on purpose or with intention. And
Okay, okay.
another thing that you can associate with how I feel like we also associate self-harm with only a few things like burning or cutting, but
Mhm.
there are a lot of other ways people do hurt themselves. Something like hitting a wall repeatedly, something like scratching yourself, something like pulling your own hair out. Those things also constitute as self-harm or self-injury.
Right. Right. So, my question is that self-harm constitutes as one of the symptoms of many mental disorders, such as some personality disorders or depression or eating disorders or even schizophrenia and dissociative identity disorder. Yet, you can also find self-harm, as part of repertoire of one's behavior that may not necessarily prescribe to any mental disorder. You may not necessarily have a mental disorder to be engaging in self-harm. But what are some of the identifying features, behaviors that parents and family members and friends need to look out for so that we can help identify people who may be engaging in self-harm and provide them the kind of support and help they need?
I think the first thing we need to recognize is that those people are under considerable distress. So regular cycles will change. The first signs that you should be able to tell are whether sleep has changed, whether their eating has changed, whether their moods have been drastically different, whether they aren't their normal selves, so to speak. Another way you could identify whether they're harming themselves is if they're wearing inappropriate attire for the season. This is something that I saw very personally in my life as well. Is when someone is I don't know a lot of people who will walk up to you and say, "I'm so proud of cutting myself. I don't mind you seeing," because it's a very personal thing, especially when you're at the peak of your distress, which is usually when you resort to self-harm. Um, you don't want people to see what's happening, so you cover it up in any way. So, another way to identify it would, I guess, be, sometimes it's swim season, and these people you would usually go swimming with, suddenly one or two of them don't want to change into their costumes. It, I mean, you don't directly correlate it to something like self-injury, but I feel like it's integral for us to start questioning small things like this as well, because there are these little behavioral differences that, if you pick up on, make all the difference. Um, I think another thing that you could look into is if they have a specific thing that they have a very close bond with all of a sudden. Like, I know people who got very close to the blades. Blades they wouldn't necessarily hurt themselves with, but just blades. They had to have one on themselves at all times to feel calm, to feel like they're still in control. So if there is like an unbearable attachment with something, you should know that there's something going on. Even if it isn't with a weapon, so to speak, even if it's with one object, you should know that they are panicking a little. So they're trying to hold something very close to themselves, and that is a red flag. Um, Another red flag could be, I don't know. So you have to remember that this is a form of regular distress. So you have to, every person varies a little bit. There aren't always consistent signs. You can't say if these three things are happening in their lives, they're definitely hurting them. That's not how this works. Some people resort to self-harm on something that most of us will not look into as something that would distress them. But everybody feels emotions so differently that you have to give them the benefit of the doubt that something has impacted them in ways that we couldn't imagine for them to reach this stage.
Right. Right, right, right. So, you've talked about how we associate cutting or burning stereotypically, but there are many other ways in which someone could be harming themselves, like, you know, maybe punching a wall or maybe pulling their hair or something like that. Now, my question is going to be very parent-like, something that maybe all older people or parental generation who don't understand what self-harm is, the question is why? कि मतलब so for instance for me if I see even a pinprick or getting an injection is something that I may as a human being run away from because that's painful, then why would someone hurt themselves or go through this kind of a duress is, if you could explain that,
Okay,
what's your
I think
insight on it?
first thing I'm going to address is that very common misconception that
Yeah.
only the older generations don't understand what self-harm, so to speak, is. You will meet so many people throughout your life, no matter how old you are, who won't understand why you're doing something.
Right, right.
And it's very important for sensitization to reach across ages so that we can nip it in the bud early on. Because again, this is something if you experience earlier on in life, you carry with you. Even if you recover, it becomes part of who you are. So if we don't let it reach that stage and address it a lot earlier, it makes all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, I think what I'm sorry, I think I lost track of what you were talking about.
No, no, no. I was just asking you why does one do it? So yeah,
So,
I think you pointed it out that, it's not just the older generation. I think even younger people or even your own peers will find it very hard to understand what a person is going through. But my question was that why? What goes?
for a lot of people, it's about control. It's about something that's happening in their lives that they cannot control. Whether it's a breakup, whether it's something that they don't want to share with you, even. A lot
Hmm,
of people hurt themselves because something's happened in their life that they are talking about. A lot of people hurt themselves because they can't talk about what's happening.
hmm,
And I think what you need to understand is that when someone's hurting themselves, you even when they're telling you this is why it's happening, it might not be the entire reason. So it is very important to keep checking in with them. There
hmm.
are many other reasons also why people self harm. We romanticize self harm in a lot of ways. So what
Right.
happens is it's known to be addictive. So when you hurt yourself once, it releases chemicals that give you a little bit of a high. And if you've exposed yourself to something like this once, twice, maybe thrice, just like anything else that's addictive, it latches onto you and you might want to do it again just for fun, just because it made you feel good, but then it turns into something a lot more serious.
Right. So, this is very interesting that I have read somewhere, but I don't think a lot of people, the masses, or even people who study psychology and psychologists understand what you've just said. That it's addictive. It's addictive as maybe smoking or drinking or any other thing. And that's why it's very very hard to give up. So, I think there's a lot of empathy that lacks amongst us because we do not understand this addictive element of hurting yourself. So, right. So my
And this
next
is
question
something that,
is,
yeah, sorry, go on.
no, no, go on, go on, go on.
So that's why I feel like when we expose ourselves to it very early on, even when it's not, even because we're just joking about it, we're just like, oh, stab yourself in the hand, see if you feel anything. Because we start that stuff very young as
Right,
children,
right,
very
right.
young in school and whatnot, and it's funny in the moment, but long run when you look backward, you're like, that was very impulsive, and that has led to a lot of other things. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing we need. That's why we need to start sensitizing the younger generation as well. That's why I think I kind of got stuck there as well. Is because if we take inflicting pain on yourself seriously from the get go, we with a lot of people we won't reach a stage where it becomes a problem. It's like smoking a cigarette, like you said. You're anxious, you feel like you need to focus again, you go smoke a cigarette. You're anxious, you feel like you need to regain control, you go hurt yourself some way, and you think you can carry on.
Hmm. Hmm, 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 hmm. Right. So you focused a lot on the young generation. This is what, when I was reading around self-harm, I realized that self-harm is exceedingly common in certain demographics, especially the young females. So you have young teenager girls and younger women. So what makes younger women more vulnerable to self-harm as opposed to other demographics?
Um, so women, I'm going to use the F word now. This is why we need feminism in our lives as well, because I think a lot more women have been vocal about it over the years that they are hurting themselves. They own up to it a lot more willingly because as a society, women do tend to have tighter knit social circles that share more,
Mhm,
and I feel like that contributes to a large part of why we know of more women who hurt themselves. But
mhm,
that being said, people who have been exposed to domestic abuse, to abuse in any way, whether be it at home, be it in relationships, be it verbal abuse, any kind of abuse, they tend to
sexual abuse especially has a very
absolutely,
strong thing.
absolutely, they tend to gravitate toward it more, um, because something like that is addictive, because pain, so to speak, is addictive. You feel like that's your new normal. You feel like that's something you need. You need that adrenaline rush. You need that feeling to be able to continue. And and a lot of women aren't okay to talk about it. They're not okay to talk about what's happening in their lives, or any kind of situation they've been in where they felt disturbed and the people around them can't address it. They
Mhm.
take it on themselves to rectify this feeling alone, which in a lot of people doesn't work out. A lot of people can get through things by themselves, and a lot of people need help getting through some things, but they might not need help with the others.
Right. Do you think it also has to do with, like you said, that control is something very central to self-harm? So, especially people who feel that they lack control in other aspects of their life, they may be harming themselves as a way of feeling in control again. And you're likely to find women to be in situations where they may experience lack of control, dependencies on other people, individuals, not being able to take control of their life, their destinies, so many things. So maybe that could also be one of the reasons.
Absolutely, the helplessness that comes with being a woman, especially in a place like where we live in NCR right now, where
Hmm.
turmoil has been at an all-time high for a minute now. A lot of people I know personally who feel like they're losing control over their surroundings. It may not even have something to do directly with their lives, but there's so much
Hmm.
distress just by their surroundings and helplessness that they can't do anything to either help the situation or to be able to help someone they know personally. That it just boils down to being this.
Right, right, right. So the next thing that I want to ask may make some people a little uncomfortable, but I still will because I hope this is a safe space to discuss these things. So I was told by a friend of mine who's teaching in a school that there was a young girl who committed suicide, and later on and she didn't survive. So later on they got to know that she was actually some of her friends informed that she was harming herself, and some of her friends informed that she was just joking around, and she was, like you said, that initially people just pick up ऐसे मार के देखते हैं तू कर सकती है या मैं कर सकती हूँ, and kind of challenging themselves, stupid reckless teenage things, I guess. So I cannot comment about what she was going through, of course. I cannot comment about what her experience was, what distress she had. But the friends do say that there might have been an element of her not wanting to do it, but just experimenting with self harm. So there is a complex link between suicidal tendencies and self harm. Uh, Self harm definitely can become, injurious to your health. It may affect it. You may end up hurting yourself to the extent to which you may not be able to come back. But many people also say that if they don't have suicidal tendencies with self harm. So can you comment about this complex relationship between suicidal tendencies, suicide, and self harm, to be more specific?
So there, you can't put them in the same box. They are two very separate feelings. There are a lot of people who hurt themselves in an attempt to regain control who do not want to die. And there are a lot of
Right.
people who do want to die but also hurt themselves or don't hurt themselves because
Mm-hmm.
like that's a part of who they are or that isn't a part of who they are. So it's a completely different thing. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who are suicidal will not self-harm, which is why you can't predict that someone is going through something unless you pick up on their everyday behavior. Because for a lot of people who want to die, they think about it and it's a secret. Again, it's a secret. If you hurt yourself and people pick up on it, your secret's going to be out and people are going to keep an eye on it. So coming
Mm-hmm.
back to that girl, like I said, cutting is addictive, hurting yourself is addictive. So even if she was just playing around, she reached a phase where it's completely normal. Anybody who starts ultimately progresses because it's not enough anymore. So your scars just become deeper, your burns become harsher, larger. And for a lot of people who self harm but don't want to die, sometimes you reach a point where you don't want to hurt yourself permanently, but you cut too deep and you can't turn back. And that's just it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I was also, so you said that, people who self-harm, for them, this may be a secret and they don't want others to know because they may not be able to, like any other addiction, they don't want to be stopped from it
Mhm.
and they don't want people to come to know about it. Yet, again, there's a myth around self-harm wherein there are talks about how some people may be doing this for attention, grabbing eyeballs. And then I read something online about real cutters don't do it for attention or pain. Real cutters do it for satisfaction of being in control of something. What is this real cutters and pseudo cutters, and why is this what kind of conversation is this about real
I don't
pseudo
know
cutters
who
and
turned this into a competition. I don't know when we reached a place where it was like, no, no, I come first. But so again, it comes back to romanticizing the whole thing. We've seen throughout our entertainment history also that, oh, if you want to prove your love to someone, you cut yourself and you write their name in blood. That's not romantic. I would scream and run. And yeah, like
Right,
that's not flattering in any way. Please go see someone. Please go see somebody you love or somebody who will listen to you. Something's up. So
right,
again,
right, right.
it comes from the fact that it's been so normalized that we've made jokes about it for so many decades that it's
Hmm.
just we see it on television and even in television we see such different stories that may not necessarily be what actually happens when you're going through something like that. Um, so yeah, I think it's just about having real conversations about something like this. Like we have to do with anything that we need to address in a time like now. We need to have real conversations. We can't laugh and make jokes and feel like that's spreading awareness. It's not.
Right, 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 right. So I think I do agree with you that there has been a lot of romanticization for self-harm. So, for instance, this TV show came out, which I saw because all of my students were watching 13 Reasons Why. And there was this very problematic scene about, I don't know, some people thought it was spreading awareness about mental health, but I kind of found, maybe I thought this was more of a generation gap because I didn't resonate with those feelings, especially that last, it's more voyeurism to people's issues than, something more genuine and starting a conversation on mental health. It's that very problematic scene of where she uh, ends up taking her life again has been shown in such a romanticized manner because for me, when I saw it, I was like, when people see this, they don't realize there is nothing after that. Nobody's listening to your tapes. Nobody's thinking about you,
No one's
perhaps.
going to make a
And
TV show about you. That's not what's going to happen ultimately.
exactly, that death is final. There is full stop after that. And then, like you talked about men, in men especially, self-harm is not, I don't know how, to what extent is it taking control of their life or not, but younger men at least may start this because टीवी पे दिखाया जाता है इसी तरीके से आशिकी की जाती है. And
Mhm.
आशिक लोग मतलब अपना मतलब आई थिंक हर स्कूल में हर क्लास में एक लड़का जरूर होगा जिसने जिस लड़की से वो मोहब्बत करता है उसका कंपास लेके अपना मतलब नाम जरूर लिखा होगा अपने हाथ पे.
I'm telling you there are at
एंड
least five in every class. It's not one, at least five.
एटलीस्ट 5. क्योंकि ये मतलब पता नहीं उनको कहाँ अगेन मीडिया से ही शायद दिखाई दिया है कि इस तरीके से अपना प्यार इजहार किया जाता है. So there is a lot of romanticization of self-harm in the media. And what happens with this romanticization is that what you said, that some people may pick it up as, something like a fad or maybe something that their peers are doing. They may see it on screen. They may think that this might draw some attention, but maybe like, teenage years are just full of distress for most people. And maybe some people find this as a way of dealing with their emotions and may get into a point where they can't come back anymore. So, uh, what do you have to say about this entire media and attention and peer? Do you think someone can learn this behavior through their peers?
Absolutely. I feel like there are times where, like you mentioned, you read a post somewhere where it said real cutters don't cut themselves or whatever that was. If we can't support each other when someone is clearly saying that I'm hurting myself, if it's, oh, no, no, you're not actually hurting yourself, we're in the wrong environment. That's not how we're going to progress. That's not how we're going to have the mental health conversation. Because if it's more, no, I'm worse than you are, and that's why I win, nobody's winning anything. And this
Right.
romanticization amongst kids, amongst youngsters, even amongst people who think it's for attention. There are people who do it because they have an urge, because it becomes a physical, it becomes like a need that I need to feel normal like this. And some people do it because they think they'll get a reaction. You're not getting the right kind of reaction. Secondly,
Mm.
it becomes a need, even if you started it as a joke. If you feel like you need to stay in control and that's what's going to get you to control, you get help. For a lot of us, we think,
Mm.
oh, like even with smoking, even with drinking, a lot of us think we don't have a problem to go way into it and we don't know how to get out. The thing about
Right.
smoking or drinking is you can go to a doctor or you can go to rehab or you will have people around you who can physically see that you are indulging in something that is not healthy. For a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
who self-harm, people can't see what's up till it's much later. Like you said that the girl you mentioned earlier, sorry, I woke her.
Mm-hmm.
The girl you mentioned earlier, she may not have wanted to be there, but it reached a stage, and like you said, her friends thought that she was just kidding around. Maybe that's what she was trying to say, because it's what she believed. No, it's not serious. It's just something I do sometimes. You don't have to worry about it, but you don't know when to worry about it because you physically can't tell how bad it is now.
Right. 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 So now talking about recovery. So someone's also had this question, has raised this question. How do you support someone who's self-harming? When do you need you? How do you come to know you really need help? When do you come to know you really need help? What do you do when you feel like you need help? So there might be people who may tune in or may watch this video who self-harm, or there may be people who may be friends to someone who self-harm. So how does one recover in this, from
So,
this actually?
baby steps, genuinely baby steps. If you want to hurt yourself, and you feel like you can't get through this moment without hurting yourself, if you exercise refrain for another minute, it's a victory. It means you have control for another minute. You have enough control to say, I can do 60 more seconds without hurting myself, and fine. Then, even if you hurt yourself after, it's okay. It's something you need in the moment, but it's one step. So that's something that you can do, and I'll get more into what more you can do personally. But first, I think I want to address how to support people.
Mhm.
Um, you have to make sure that it's safe to talk to you. Even if you suspect it, do not have the conversation unless they're ready or they're confiding in you in other aspects at least. You can't walk up to someone and be like, are you hurting yourself? It's not, it doesn't come off as friendly, it doesn't come off as you care, it comes off as I'm judging you right now and I demand to know what's up. And again, the person doesn't feel safe. You're not a safe space in the moment. Um, So that's one thing. Another thing is find out if they're okay with their scars. If they're not okay with their scars, something as tiny as saying, hey, we're going to be around people who you may not want to have this conversation with. So if you want to cover up, I have your back. If you think you want to do this without, I have your back. And if someone is being aggressive and saying, hey, what is that? What is that scar? What have you done? That's not okay. Um, Step in. Sometimes they need you to step in. Sometimes people freeze and they don't know how to protect themselves. And that conversation is going to result in them hurting themselves later because they, again, have been judged. They, again, feel inferior. They feel alone. So sometimes, and ask, always ask. It's always about consent. Some people don't want you stepping in because, again, they feel like it makes it a bigger deal. It's not a secret anymore. It's always their secret first. So once you have consent saying, hey, can I step in sometimes? Like, I feel like that was really uncomfortable for you. So is it okay if I just ask them to back off by myself without making it a big deal? Ask them things like that. Yeah, there are lots of ways you can be a good friend or a good supporter through a time like this. Another way could be just saying, just let me know when you hurt yourself. I'm not saying don't, just let me know so I know how you're doing. That's I just want to know how you're doing. I'm not saying don't do something. I'm not saying do something. I can't tell you what to do right now, but just let me know what's up. I think another thing that you can do as a friend or as somebody who's supporting them is take a step back, take them away from the situation you think that is causing that kind of distress. If you think there's something going on in school, or you think there's something going on at home, or you think there's something going on in their life that they can't escape, there's always 10-15 minutes that you can take away if someone is with you. Even if something is eating you up inside out, if someone's holding your hand saying, let's go pop some bubble wrap, let's just go get 5 balloons and toss them around. Something that tiny. Going to a park, sitting on the swings, talking about random stuff, just taking them away from whatever may be causing them that amount of distress so that they can come back to it with a less intense perspective.
Right, right, right.
And speaking of what you can do for yourself, stop being so hard on yourself for hurting yourself. You're not doing it because you enjoy it anymore. You're not doing it because it's fun anymore. If it becomes something that you are reaching out to, there is something going on. And you don't need to beat yourself up about it because the only reason you're there is because you have been beating yourself up about feeling some way. Another thing you can do is make a record. Figure out your own pattern. What kind of conversation or what kind of a day led to something like this? And how often is this happening? And if this is happening very often because I'm in very close proximity to why it's happening, how do I step away? Even if you need someone's help and you can't do it alone, figure out a game plan. Even if you continue hurting yourself, having a game plan is 3 steps more than you had before.
Right, right, right.
I don't think I can hear you.
Sorry?
I don't think I can hear you. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Hello? You can't hear me? Hello? Hi, can you hear me?
No, I think I'm going to join back. I can't hear.
Right. Join back in. So I think we've pretty much come to the end of the questions that I had. There are some comments over here that people have left. So we're going to be taking those questions here now. And if you have any other questions, you can please type them here and we'll pick them up. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah. All good.
Yes. So what I was saying was that there are some questions and comments that I thought that we can pick up if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So just going back, so Niharika has asked this question about parents, specifically parents. Can you address what parents should do when the child is harming themselves? Especially since there's a lot of stigma around and parents tend to get very angry and very upset, which leads to more suffering than what was before. So how can one be supportive parents? You've talked about how to be a supportive friend. You've talked about identifying, what you can do for yourself, identifying what triggers you. But what about parents? How should they um, support their child?
First thing you need to do is realize that you can't make this about you. I know they're your baby, and I know you feel very strongly, and I know you feel like you messed up somewhere along the line. But if you make this a defense thing or something like, what have I done wrong? Where did I fail you?
Mm,
That's just going to make things worse. So, first thing you do is say, I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you when it reached this place. I hope
right.
you can talk to me. And if you can't talk to me, what can I do? You want to talk to somebody else? You want to go to therapy? You want to try and change something? If it's something that you can change, if they're comfortable talking to you about it, even if they can't, ask them if they want to change something. They want if something's going on somewhere. Don't take it like an attack on you. They're not hurting themselves to show you something. They're not hurting themselves because you
To
stood up.
get back at you. Or,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're hurting themselves because they're hurting. And you wouldn't
Yeah.
slap a band-aid onto like a cut. You would gently apply a band-aid. Don't smack your band-aids, guys.
Right, 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 right. So, Craving Psych has asked, is self-harm a way to escape their current emotions? Um, I think over here, maybe we can talk a little bit about. I saw the cycle, well, theoretically speaking, where you feel very intense emotions, then you resort to cutting yourself, then you feel better because of the hormones that you said, endorphins or whatever. You feel better, and then you feel ashamed and you feel guilty. So, but you have escaped. This becomes your escape mechanism. This becomes your coping mechanism, a very self-destructive coping mechanism. So, what would you want to say to that?
I feel like you don't cut to escape the feelings you're feeling. You hurt yourself to escape the intensity. You still feel every single thing that you did, but it's not overwhelming. You've done one thing, which is why this is why it's easily doable if you have the right kind of support, if you have the right kind of help and people pushing you forward, and even resources. It's because you
Mm-hmm.
can replace it with something that isn't as destructive. But I think it's just in that moment you want to feel relief. It's like a horrible stomach ache. You will do anything to get rid of it. And even if you
Mm,
feel 12% better, you feel better. And now you can go to the doctor. And now you can address it another way. It's the same thing. You
right.
need intensity of that pain to stop for a minute so that you can continue functioning. So, yeah,
Right,
while
right,
it may provide temporary respite, it's not a solution to anything, hence the cycle, hence why it circles right back to self loathing and hurting yourself eventually.
right, 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 right. There was this one question, a comment actually, and question that was there in between. I can't find it now, but somebody had asked about this comment that you had made that pain can become addictive. So, what does that mean? Because a lot of us people who run away from, like I said, even a pinprick, don't would not understand how pain can become addictive. So, I think this point is very important to create. That would create empathy in people understanding how pain can become addictive. So, can you elaborate on that?
So it's something as tiny as you know how when we were younger we would take these needles for some reason we were doing the weirdest things growing up. We would take these needles and we would poke it through our skin and be like, oh look, no blood, but there's a needle in my finger. It's literally something
Right.
like that. That's how it
Hmm.
begins. And you don't know when you stop taking pain as seriously.
Right.
Because same thing, when I'll give you my own example. When I was younger, I'd be like, oh, I'll never smoke. It's terrible. I would never do that. But I was around smokers. I was like, chalo, let's do it once for fun. What will happen? And then I had a problem to address. It's the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like any
Right.
other thing that provides respite, temporary respite in the moment, it is literally like anything else like that. And even if you look at it in a different sense, wherein sometimes you have toxic relationships that you're okay with
Hmm.
because this is the kind of pain you're used to. हाँ ये तो सब करते हैं. It becomes something like that. It's like
Right.
sometimes you get mirchi even though you are burning, but it's like it's okay. You're enjoying it now. This has become part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting examples you've given. I think that very eye-opening examples because हम लोग it helps reduce the stigma. क्योंकि we if we think about we do have a lot of self-harming tendencies in ourselves that we find very hard to get rid of, like abusive relationships, for instance, you talked about. So I think that's pretty much it for my, my questions. If there are any other comments, you can talk about that. But you wanted to introduce us to some of your babies.
This is
You want to bring
okay.
them in.
So this is the only baby because these were neonatal babies. So with puppies it's different. With puppies and kittens it's different. They're not fully developed when they're born. They can't like pee poo themselves. They can't see. They can't hear anything. So this is a very tricky stage. So now we have one baby. She is the sole survivor of her litter, and she does not like me right now. And this is her.
Oh,
She's old today.
this is what? Sorry.
She's a week old today.
Oh,
As you
so
can see, our eyes aren't
cute.
open. We can't completely hear yet, but we can yell.
Yeah. So she's lost her mother.
Yeah, they lost their mother, I think 12 hours after she gave birth. She came under a cow and she went out looking for food. So the whole thing of not getting mother's milk for the first 48 hours and everything contributes very heavily to their lack of immunity and chances of survival. But this one's
Right.
pushing through.
I'm sorry, I did not tell people who viewers who have tuned in actually, that Asavri is very passionate about animal rescue, and I don't know. Do you
No,
keep a count of
I
how
just like
many?
animals more than people. I'm just don't like paint me out to be this great human being. I literally do not like people in general. I'm very picky. So animals are a lot easier. Like they tell you what they want. We like you, we don't like you. It's all out there.
Yeah. Totally, completely. And thank you so much, Asavri. You've really given us a lot of insights on a very very taboo topic indeed. I hope that no, not at all. I mean, I think
I
I
hope
have
this
learned
helps
so much.
some people.
Sorry.
I hope this helps start some conversations. I hope this
Yes.
helps some people. I hope you introspect a little on what's been up.
Right. So if you want to start a conversation with a friend, if you want to start a conversation with a family member on self-harm, then please you can show them this video, which I'll be putting up perhaps on YouTube later on. And also thank you so much. And self-harm, if you there's a lot of help available out there if but you need to talk to people first. You need to take their consent. You need to give them the safe space, because the first thing when you hear about someone harming themselves is, oh my god, why are you even doing this, and you're so privileged, you have everything in life, and all of that moral lecture that will make them close up. So
You'll
there are
be
a lot of
surprised. A lot of people there where you're showing concern is smacking you. You're hurting yourself. Thappad. Arey, how is that helping anybody? How are you showing your concern like that? So yeah, exactly
I,
what you were saying. It's like treat it gently.
I don't think people I don't think people really know how to. We've never been taught to how to deal with uncomfortable emotions. We've never been able to talk about how to deal with sadness, how to talk about sadness. We kind of tend to repress them, and self-harm, of course, will be on the topmost of that pyramid of uncomfortable topics. But thank you for starting this conversation with me today, and
Thank you for starting this
kudos to
conversation.
not not at all. Kudos to all the work that you do. And I hope I think I see a lot of mental health advocacy work in you, and I would love to see you as a mental health advocate in the near future.
Let's find out.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice
Bye.
day. Nice.
You too.
Bye.